Someone's going to like that. I'm not I don't know if that is going back.
No, I mean, the bias.
Thank you so much. Oh, now I know.
Yeah, and I was excited.
No way. You go to the Cecchetin?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm independent.
I usually try them out when
I do business there, so they have like it's all sustainability focused. It's like 2 hours away from me. So we never go. Well, I mean, yeah, I've been there like this.
I gave them my gift.
It's like
Here, I got it.
That is my fault.
Yeah, the power's in your hand.
Yeah.
أنا نص
انا اهلي من عشان هيك احنا وضعنا ضلنا عشان ما نحن يعني عن كريسماس
Everything else is like 4 or 5 times.
Be a proud brown woman. Like this.
Okay.
Look at the power.
I got the power. Hi guys, thank you so much for coming tonight. This is a fusion meeting between the SDG clubs and the Mine club. Eduarda is here with me from the Mine club, and I'm here representing the SDGs club. Today it is a very big day. We're on November 20th, which is the UN World Child Day. And in this day, we're going to talk about, the title is very clear, From Struggle to Strength, SDGs and Child Well-Being in the Middle East and Central Asia, particularly Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and Afghanistan. This is the banner you've all seen, and this talk is made with Professor Ibrahim Al-Marashi, that we're very grateful to have with us, not only in this event, but so many others. And I'm gonna start by humbling Lasolo. This is the village I'm from. This is a one-road village. There is not much villages I know in the world that only have one road. And I'm from that little house that's pinned. And if I was born in the house just before, I wouldn't have gone to school. Let alone go to uni, and a uni that cost maybe 100 months of someone's salary in my country. I'm from the Moroccan mountains where there's nothing, and if I was born 1,000 kilometers down south, I would have been born in a conflict zone where there's war between Morocco and Algeria, or Morocco and the Polisario, depending on how you see it. And I don't think I would even have learned how to write. And this is not only my case, it's the case of most of you that grew up in developing countries, because maybe you were born in the right house and that's why you're here. But even if you were born in a privileged country, this could have been your case. And the little girl or the little boy that was born here today is not here to listen to us. So what's the UN World Children Day about? It was created in 1959, and it was a day created during the Declaration of the Rights of the Child. So basically the UN got together, they signed a paper, and they decided that not only this was going to be the Children's Day, but that every child should have peace, every child should have a livable planet to live on in the future, and this is where we bring on the SDGs, and every child should have a voice. There's so many children in the world that don't have voices, and this is why we're doing this today, to talk a little bit more about what can be done and what is the reality that we don't see. Because we often see, do you condemn something? We've heard this sentence over and over in the last few weeks. Do you condemn, do you condemn the murder of children? Or is it too complicated when it's children from the Middle East? Let me tell you, it's not that complicated. We're gonna break it down in an hour, and then you'll see what you can do and how maybe our generation will change things just a little. We're going back to the talk. Ibrahim is gonna take the lead, and I'll come back at the end to show you how we can make it better tomorrow. Thank you for listening.
If I put this part on YouTube, would you
Sure.
decide?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Where do you take the screenshot from do you condemn blah blah blah?
From a Lebanese loser. Yeah.
Sorry.
Hi, come on in, have a seat. Did you check in?
Yeah.
You've checked in. Go ahead and check in. Did anyone just come in that needs to check in?
Guys, checking out is important because then it shows i.e. that there's a lot of people to our events, and then we can make more events, and then we can even rent bigger rooms, because we all have the room problem. If we show up and we're 400 and we've all checked in, then they will have to give us a better room.
How do you check in?
You had to go and it connects to the event.
Right now, can I do it?
Well,
You have your QR code? Get your QR codes if you haven't been
Registration's
checked
supposed to be
in.
closed,
I'll
but
go
you
through your place, I'll check you.
and then we'll move you to the main list. Like if you check in now, we'll move you to the main list as if you're at the.
I connect?
Yeah.
I got it, registration is closed.
Whoever had this room before was very mean. It was very.
That we figured out.
Very mean, did not want us out, and
Next time we want.
Anyone else with QR codes?
does anyone know how to fix this problem with the screens?
Is there anyone
I
studying
get
computer
brains.
science that is a designer or something that can put the PowerPoint in presentation mode? I can't break.
Hello?
Let me just flex. It's nice and hot.
I can't promise anything.
So it's PowerPoint is showing up there.
Why do I even bother?
I'm not gonna show on screen.
Normally you should pinch it.
Somebody, yeah, no, actually, it's.
Yeah, but the thing is, you're looking at that screen, that's the other one. Can you let me on your phone? So you have, I don't masters in this. I don't know what the heck.
Yeah, so I want it to be seen here.
Yeah.
It won't show, it won't show up full screen. Full screen.
Somewhere.
Never a lot, baby.
Yeah, okay.
I'm pretty sure there's something.
On the top left there.
Yeah, like a shared screen.
Oh, this is. Someone is down there.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the food is up here. I don't know what this is.
Yeah, we're gonna get private lessons from her.
You wanna do it? If you need to do your homework, let me know. I got you. Yeah. Just let me know. It's so big color here. I don't know why.
I'm stuck. I've never
What did you learn today? You're inside.
They can also download this video.
What? Keep it better.
Yeah.
Like they're saying there, it's supposed to be. It's. We know I feel union. Like all of those, it's supposed to be. It's different. It's allowed. It's. Why would you do these three? It's like actually, I hate the Oh my god.
Okay, and it is recording. Very good. All right, guys, sorry for the technical problems. So, I was going to begin this lecture having a moment of silence for a particular child. Let me begin. She was a child a while ago. This particular girl named Giulia, who was still, you can see, just a child inside on March 29th, was killed by her boyfriend. She should be graduating in a couple of months. The boyfriend who failed was so jealous that he ended up killing her. Her body was recovered at the bottom of the lake. He fled to Germany. He was just captured today. On Tuesday, schools in Italy are going to hold a minute of silence. Now, the tragedy is this. When I heard about this, I was going to ask if you could have a minute of silence for all kids killed in conflict. Okay. What is sad is this child here. The mother woke up, came out of a coma to find her son. She woke up not realizing her son would be dead upon her recovery from her coma. There are two women right now amongst thousands. There are two more women amongst thousands who have just lost their child. So if I could just ask kindly if we could have a minute of silence for all the kids killed in conflicts. Amazing how slow a minute goes when we just stop. Anyway, so here are the SDGs. And it's number 1, number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 that particularly affect children in the countries that we're going to be looking at today. Okay. It's number 16 that is often needed to deliver 1 through 6 for children. But what I'm going to try to do in the following is I could show you basically an article I wrote. Victims of war are more than just a statistic. In this article, actually, I was writing about a high school friend who died in Iraq, okay? But I found it so suitable that the editors at the San Francisco Chronicle chose this image of a child. I don't think that was an accident. It was meant to be. In this particular article, I want us to come to a realization, okay, that the way we study international relations, there's a major flaw. And I'm going to address what this flaw is. So we began our lecture in Spain. 1937, an event happened, memorialized in a museum not too far away from here, that finally allows you to take pictures. Pablo Picasso wanted to basically show you how he learned about the news of the bombing of a Basque town known as Guernica in 1937. He learned of it from the mass media of its time, a black and white newspaper. What was being depicted in this painting was horror. Look at the way the heads are contorted, specifically towards the sky. Because for the first time in human history, death came from above. For most of human history, the enemy approached on the horizon and basically besieged your city walls. What did Picasso want to capture was a very modern way of dying, okay? You notice how I want you to look at the grieving mother. The grieving mother looking towards her sky, because up until this point, the only thing came from the sky was the sun, birds, and rain. And now for the first time, the ability to deliver death to the masses is being done by the air. This painting, a replica of it, the original is in Reina Sofia after having years in exile. A replica of it is in front of the United Nations General Assembly. The idea was Guernica would never happen again with the establishment of a multilateral institution. No child will witness death from above. Sure enough, I want you to look at the dead child in this wailing woman's hands. Because this is the question I'm going to ask. We, unfortunately, since the establishment of the United Nations, have witnessed many Guernicas going on as we speak. In the year 1937, death came above, not only in the village of Guernica, but in Shanghai. The following child, we don't know the sex of the child, but the point was, just as Guernica was being bombed by German aircraft, Japanese aircraft delivered bombs on the railroad station of Shanghai. Imagine if you were at Chamartin right there, and all of a sudden just a bomb came to you while you were trying to escape the fighting. Let me read this. It was a few minutes after a Japanese air attack on civilians, and you have to realize what unites Guernica in 1937 and this picture in 1937 was an innovation. An innovation. For the first time in history, aircraft were being used to target masses, civilians from the air. It's the first time this happens. During the Battle of Shanghai, Hearst Corporation photographer H.S. Newsreel Wong did not discover the identity or even the sex of the injured child whose mother lay dead nearby. One of the most memorable war photographs ever published, and perhaps the most famous newsreel scene of the 1930s, the image stimulated an outpouring of Western anger against Japanese violence in China. Well, now think about how does a picture go viral before the digital revolution. He had to take the footage, and he was lucky he was able to keep it and not be captured by any Japanese soldiers who would have confiscated it. It had to be put on a US Navy ship and went to the Philippines. Manila, by the way, for all of you Arabic speakers, Manila originally comes from the Arabic Aman Allah. When a sailor arrived in Manila, it was by the safety of God that allowed you to pour into the harbor. Then it was flown to New York City. You probably don't remember the age of Pan Am Airways, okay? But it was one of the biggest airlines of its time. I had to fly to New York City, okay? Then you showed it to movie theater audiences. By the way, do you know the most common chain in the US of theaters? It's known as the Odeon. Odeon cinemas. Back then, probably during World War II, how much would you pay to go to the Odeon to watch a cinema? So in these days, you have trailers before the film. In those days, it was the only way you get the news. Instead of trailers, you'd get 5-minute newsreels. How much did you pay to go to the Odeon cinema? 5 cents in America is otherwise known as a nickel. In other words, the Nickelodeon. Yes, that's where you go to watch something like this, okay? And it went viral. It reached the masses, 50 million people in the US, 30 million people outside of the US. The crying baby was printed in the newspapers. Now, it first appeared in Life magazine. At one point, 136 million people had seen it. Okay. Now, I want you to think, how does a picture go viral today? And we're gonna go from this picture to the viral picture I want you to consider later. This was the year 1937. Whether it's the child in this iconic painting or this child here. You see, who would have guessed from bombing Guernica in 1937, it would only take a few years for a plane to do the same now. From the Shanghai train station, I go to a Japanese city known as Hiroshima. Planes were used to deliberately bomb civilians in Guernica, in Shanghai. Throughout all of World War II, the final bombing, the final culmination happens at the following place, Hiroshima. To give you Hiroshima's impact on children, I'm gonna let a Turkish poet named Nazım Hikmet describe the horror, what it was like to be a child in Hiroshima, sung by the British group, This Mortal Coil. A lot of the technology is fickle today. I just hope this works. Okay, so let us watch the film. Okay, that's fine. If there's no ad, I'll be very happy. Okay. Good. Okay.
I come and stand at every door, but no one hears my silent prayer. I knock and yet remain unseen, for I am dead, for I am dead.
another child in conflict during World War II. Another weapon of mass destruction I want to talk about. In California, this little girl was the grandmother of one of my students. So if I'm talking about children getting caught up during World War II and conflicts, this little child who's I would have never had this student were it not for this girl being very lucky, okay? Because in Germany, this girl should be killed by another weapon of mass destruction, not killed in an instant, okay? But another weapon of mass destruction that killed the Jews of Europe in another system of mass destruction. This girl barely escaped the Holocaust. This girl never had a childhood, but nevertheless, she was able to escape to have kids, okay? That would eventually become that one student in my class. That was all World War II. During World War II, an engineer made a reliable rifle. The engineer, his last name was Kalashnikov. The rifle was supposed to have been designed for World War II, but wasn't released until to the year 1947. It was cheap, it was reliable, and it was light. And because it was so light that it could be easily carried into battle, that led to the proliferation. There was always women in combat. But now women could increase, the number of women combatants could increase with the creation of Kalashnikov. If it was light enough for women, it would be also light enough for children. The phenomenon of the child soldier is born with the Kalashnikov. That was my first job, so to speak. In other words, before I became a professor, I was working for an NGO called Child Soldiers International, which was a London-based group that tried to ban the use of child soldiers. Now, you might say, do you really need an organization to ban the use of child soldiers? Which country has the largest amount of child soldiers? If 18 years old, anyone I'm covering today in this lecture has to be under 18. Give me the country that has the largest amount of child soldiers in the world. Kata.
I'm not sure that I'm correct, but I remember writing a paper on this in my first year of uni. I think it's either Iran or Yemen.
You would think Iran would? Iran did have a lot of child soldiers during the Iran-Iraq War. Yemen is not, Yemen technically has multiple armies, okay? But no, the answer would surprise you, it's neither of those. The country with the most child soldiers is the United States of America. Technically, you could join the army at 16. Yeah, exactly. Now, coming in at number 2 is the United Kingdom. Yes, in both countries, you could be 16 years old and join the army. So you might say, why is there the need for an organization to ban the use of child soldiers? Imagine if the US and the UK, in theory, recruit child soldiers. What is the difference between a child soldier and a drone? I argue that both can be easily programmed. Both can be easy. And what do they free up? They free up the adult combatants from risking their lives, you see. Whether it's a pilot, an experienced pilot, okay, or an experienced combatant. That's how child soldiers are similar to a drone. When you get a child to kill, what motivation do you give a child soldier to kill around the world? Fear, these kids have witnessed war. They have no fear. You have to give them an incentive. They're agents of death. How do you get them to kill?
Hate or desensitization?
They've already had that.
But if you threaten
What?
people they love, or if you threaten not them but other people.
Real good number of child soldiers have lost everyone. How do you get them to kill?
You give them hope.
Other way around.
You take away their hope.
You give them drugs. You offer them drugs and get them addicted. Okay, what else how do you incentivize kids to kill? Money doesn't make much of a difference. You give them drugs, they hold the guns.
Right. So
How do you kill?
Mental pressure.
What?
You assure them that they're the ones doing the right thing.
You tell them that if you could go into this village, you could rape any woman you want. You guys, this is the reality of child soldiers. You get them hooked on drugs, alcohol, meth, and basically, as an award, yes, you basically tell them go into any. You give them, and keep in mind, what are we commemorating on November 25th? That's the day where we commemorate gender-based violence. It's the International Day of Gender-Based Violence. That's how you incentivize kids. This is the key. Most of our education system, most of our news, we focus on the agents of war. What do I mean by the agents of war? Agents of wars include states, governments, okay, the drones. What I want to do in this case is refocus on the victims of war. What are children and the rape victims that are targeted, let's say, in a particular war zone? Collectively, we don't have much study on the victims of war, including child soldiers, including the victims of rape, including even, I would argue, veterans themselves who have witnessed war. Okay. That 16-year-old kid who signs up for the US Army, I would argue on some level is also a victim of war. Now, I can tell you the story of kids in Yemen, and this is where I'll begin. Okay, and I'm wondering how much impact, well, I got these numbers from the UN. 93% of children in Yemen need humanitarian assistance. A fifth of children in Yemen have lost their home due to the civil war. 1 in 5 schools in Yemen can't be used because of the conflict. And I'm just wondering, how much do these numbers and statistics have an impact on you? Or do I have to tell the story a bit different? So I begin the story now. We've gone from 1937, it's the year 1988. In the town of Iraq, called Halabja, we started with a weapon of mass destruction being used over Hiroshima. Guernica was supposed to say it would never happen again. Sure enough, Guernica happened in 1988 over a small Iraqi village. What crime did the people of this Iraqi village do according to Saddam Hussein? They didn't put up enough resistance to the Iranian forces that conquered it. In the span of the morning, a couple of aircraft flew over this village known as Halabja, okay? And bombs were released. One of those bombs was a nerve agent. It was a chemical weapon. Nerve agents go straight for the spinal, the nerve, the central nervous system. You're literally incapacitated. Chemical weapons work on 2 levels. Either they cause blistering, like mustard gas used during World War I, you inhale it, your lungs blister, or they go straight for the nervous system. This is what happened in Iraq. In 1988, you might ask, surely Saddam's use of nerve agents against his own population would have been punished, you might say. It was not punished. Not only was it not punished, the US knew about it, and they tried to blame Iran for the attack. It's not until 2003, all of a sudden, Iraq's weapons of mass destruction were a concern. In the span of a single morning, this is what weapons of mass destructions like nerve gas can do. 5,000 people were killed, including this child, literally frozen in place, a victim of a nerve gas attack. For the Kurds of Iraq, March 16th, 1988, this is one of the greatest symbols of just how literally the world turned a blind eye to the use of weapons of mass destruction. Now, I jump to 2016, we go to Syria. I want you to look at the following. This is the city of Homs. Again, I'm going to turn off the light and I want to ask yourself, what sign of life do you see in the following? Who has just witnessed this? And Homs, if you don't know, is a city in Syria that used to have millions of people. Look at the following. We're almost now going to have a godlike view from seeing the people get bombed in Guernica. Now we're going to see the destruction from above. Okay, that was 2016. Now, if you saw that deserted city, that once urban center, I ask you, where are all these people supposed to go? Well, most of you know the answer. Most of you know, where did most of those people go? 85% ended up in Lebanon, Turkey, or Jordan. It's only 15% that made the risky journey to Europe. Sorry. 15% made that risky journey to Europe. And you know what that 15% did to Europe's domestic politics. Whether it's the rise of right-wing parties to Brexit. This is the destruction in Syria. Look at what this graphic artist had to do. He was basically saying, if nobody's paying attention to it, if I put Pokemon in the destruction, maybe people will pay attention to what's happening in Syria. And so sure enough, that's what he did. These are victims of the civil war. Then we had this phenomenon. Kids recruited by the Islamic State. Not only would kids be recruited by the Islamic State, they would be recruited by Al-Qaeda. I'm going to show you videos of this. This is a young child from Central Asia who's being given a gun and told to execute the two people in front of him. Now, I want you to look at the following. These are children in the Syrian civil war. They would be recruited for both ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Oh, come on.
We're having a big signing problem.
Try to teach them anyway. Oh, come on. Okay, so let's watch the following. This is a boy too young, and I don't know why it's in Greek.
A jihadist unit of mostly Egyptian fighters.
Yeah, you. Okay, look at this child holding a Kalashnikov. His name is Abu Ali. Don't worry, don't worry. Look at the following. Let's hear his story. Look how just young he is. So here we are in Syria, and I wanted you to see just in a couple of minutes what happens as he grows up. Okay, here we go.
هلا في بجوز اختلاف بالآراء بس ولكن طالما الراية وحدة فرح نكون كلنا إن شاء الله إيد وحدة بهالطريق لإعلاء راية لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله. أنا مؤيد للتنظيم، قدم الغالي والرخيص أنا والشباب اللي موجودين معي كلاتهم، أرواحنا رخيصة في سبيل الله.
It's Eid, and Abdurrahman is receiving 17-year-old Hassan Abu Ali for tea.
17 years
Vice
old.
first met Hassan 2 years ago.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أنا حسن أبو علي من ريف حلب الغربي. إحنا أحداث حماة يعني ما كنا نعرف أبدا. الثورة هي اللي فتحت لنا يعني كنا نعرف حافظ الأسد هو إنه المقاوم هو وابنه بشار، بس الثورة إنه علمتني يعني عرفت من الثورة أحداث الثمانينات في حماة، مذبحة حماة، كانوا آبائنا يعني من كتر ما يخافوا.
Hassan has recently joined the Muhajirin Brigade, a jihadist unit of mostly Egyptian fighters.
تعاونهم كويس ومن يعني من توسطهم في الدين، يعني انضميت للمهاجرين، يعني الحمد لله يعني غيرت حياتي كلها، يعني حسيت حالي انه انا يعني عايش في الدنيا، يعني عايش جنة الدنيا سبحان الله. والله بفكر انه اكون باذن الله يعني داعية، مجاهد داعية باذن الله.
Many Al-Qaeda-inspired groups have formed during the arduous and bloody war against the regime. Here, we see fighters from the Bin Laden Brigade training for combat.
يا اخوي الحمد لله رب العالمين بفضل الله عز وجل جاهزين الحمد لله. انا محمد حسين من بلاد الشام، مواليد سوريا. خرجت للجهاد في عام 2001 لأفغانستان تلبية لدعوة من الشيخ أسامة بن لادن، نسأل الله أنه يتقبله في الشهداء. وبدأنا الحمد لله رب العالمين بتشكيل جمع جديد وأسمنا على اسم أخونا الشيخ أسامة بن لادن، نسأل الله أنه يتقبله في الشهداء. جبهة بن لادن لتحرير الشام. يا أخوي أبو عمر، شلون اليوم عملتوا رياضة؟
الحمد لله. ايه
عملتوا درس عسكرية؟
عملنا.
وبعدها؟
وبعدها قرأنا قرآن.
مستعد أن تخرج الآن للقتال في أي مكان في بقاع العرب؟
إن شاء الله. أنا اسمي أبو عمرو، عمري 13 سنة، من جبهة بن لادن. خرجت لتحكيم كتاب الله في الأرض والدفاع عن المظلومين في سوريا. أسأل الله أن يرزقنا الشهادة. نحن جندك يا أسامة،
نحن جندك يا أسامة،
نحن طلاب شهادة،
نحن طلاب شهادة. Kids haven't even reached adulthood and they're talking about martyrdom. دربنا درب منير.
Many teenage boys have joined the ranks of the jihadist units fighting Assad. Hassan, now called Abu Ali, is one of them. Now he prepares to head to the front line for the
Look at this
first
girl
time.
here.
جيب لك هيدي رأيت لا إله إلا الله. إيه جيبها. لا وين بدي أحطها؟ على راسك. حطها هيك.
لا إله إلا الله والشاهد على الله.
وين ديروا فيهم؟ وين ديروا فيهم يعني؟ نلعب فيهم. هذول نستشهد إن شاء الله، ننتصر بعدين نستشهد. مو؟
ما
لا ننتصر بعدين نستشهد. مو؟ لا إيه؟
ما صرنا عنا واحنا بالي.
شو؟
ما صرنا واحنا بالي.
أول ما بلشت الثورة.
I want you to look at this
أنا
girl
كنت مع الثورة صراحة.
because this video was made in 2014. This video is hard because when I look at that girl, I remember my younger sister, Layla. I don't know if this boy is alive. I don't know if this girl is alive. But I can tell you what are the odds. Most likely he's not. Because usually child soldiers are used as cannon fodder. Remember what I said about the drone? What do they have in common? It's so the experienced adult fighters do not take the risky maneuvers, usually send in the kids first. The thing is, I don't know if this girl is alive. Knowing the part of Aleppo she lived in, it was completely destroyed. And I have no way of ever knowing what happened to these kids. Why do I like this? Why do I like this? Because I mentioned my youngest sister. Of course, she's grown up. And remember what that little girl said to her brother? All that talk of martyrdom. You see, that little girl just didn't buy it. At the end of the day, what did she say to her brother? I don't know what you're talking about, but you're my only brother. I only have one of you. She didn't buy it. And sometimes that's what it takes, is kids to make us realize these words and categories that we create. Why do I like this image so much? It is because my sister is a Shia. Her husband is a Sunni from Egypt. When I play with my 16-year-old nephew, right? Never once do I think this kid is a sushi. Right? I just look at this beautiful blonde little boy and I play with them. And so sometimes this is the other role that kids can help us, realize. Now I go to Iraq. This is a girl who lost her childhood. This is a girl who's seen too much violence in her lifetime. Think of that little German girl that I showed you, who probably was too young to realize the fact that I'm Jewish means I'm going to be killed. This girl comes from a community in Iraq known as the Yezidis. And why has this girl witnessed too much for a child to witness in her lifetime? Because her and her family literally had to escape with their lives. If not her, she wouldn't take it. If not her, sorry, all the women folk around her would have been taken as sexual slaves in their lifetime. I'm going to show you the next, and the next is quite hard, and I have to warn you, it is disturbing. It is triggering. So again, when I talk about kids during conflict, I want you to think not only how old this woman is in the following videos. Watch the following, and I do warn you, it's hard to watch. And I want you to think how old this woman is as I show you this. How old was she when she had children? No. So let's watch. 3 minutes and it's going to be hard.
Aida was among the earliest Yazidi women to escape from ISIS. She is 21 and was abducted.
In 21, I want you to think how old she was when she probably got married, how old she was when she probably had the kids.
With her 2 children near Sinjar Mountain last summer.
داعش شاد كرن هاي شاد كرن داعش
يعني أو تعبي وخديت بيتشوان إنسانات تكوجن.
داري ويسر جكر.
I dream of ISIS attacking us and I run away. Sometimes I see them arresting me. Some nights I can't sleep until the early morning hours because of the nightmares.
After they overran the Yazidi towns and villages in northern Iraq, ISIS turned homes into prisons for captured women.
I wish I could forget that building. We were around 35 girls and 3 women. I was only 21, but I was the oldest.
21 as the oldest.
They were coming and taking girls from this building. We had one guard who was forcing a 9-year-old girl. He was forcing her to go with him into the bathroom. I couldn't take it, and I had a fight with the guard. The guard said, "I'll kill you," and I said, "I don't mind dying for her. Don't take the girl."
Were they also raping the 9-year-old?
Of course. He told me, "It's okay in our religion to take a 9-year-old girl." I said, "Don't tell me this." I said, "I don't want to hear it. I don't want your religion."
The ISIS fighter told Aida it was legitimate to marry girls as young as 9.
المهم محاولة يعني
I tried my best, but they just took her, and it was really sad.
ناخذ براستي مخدرات
They drugged her.
Obviously, she needs clinical help. You can tell that she's going through PTSD. There's no support institution. Just look at her daughter. Kind of happy that video. Anyway, as I conclude, look when I began this lecture with the year 1937. Whether it's Guernica, here in Spain, Shanghai, to Homs in Syria. This painting is called Alepnica. And basically, it's a refutation to the UN having a mural of Guernica in front of the General Assembly. What is it arguing? Guernica did happen in Spain again. And here's the tragedy. Again, that woman wailing that dead child in her hands. I remember this from the Syrian civil war. And the imagery struck me. And this is sometimes, what a historian does, is even in recent history, it's our job to collect this. And then just show you the similarities, the apathy, the fatigue that sets in. Yeah. Again, where are these kids supposed to go? So, like I said, 15% made that harrowing journey to Europe. And this is what that 15% looked like as they fled. And then one child who wasn't lucky enough to make it off the shore of Turkey. So just like the 1937 picture, let me read what happened underneath. The same journalist, okay? It's not Newsreel Wong, it is a Turkish journalist. The war in Syria had been going on for more than 4 years when Alan Kurdi's parents lifted the 3-year-old boy and his 5-year-old brother into an inflatable boat and set off from the Turkish coast for the Greek island of Kos, just 3 miles away. Within minutes of pushing off, and you have to remember, these boats were usually way overloaded. A wave capsized the vessel, and the mother and both sons drowned. On the shore near the coastal town of Bodrum, which is a vacation resort, a few hours later, Nilüfer Demir of the Doğan News Agency came upon Alan, his face turned to one side, and the bottom elevated as if he were just asleep. There was nothing left to do for him. There was nothing left to bring him back to life, she said. So Demir raised her camera. I thought, this is the only way I can express the scream of his silent body. The resulting image became the defining photograph of an ongoing war. By the time Demir pressed her shutter, had killed some 220,000 people. The number has doubled since then. It was taken not in Syria, a country the world preferred to ignore, but on the doorstep of Europe, where its refugees were heading. Dressed for travel, the child lay between one world and another. Waves had washed away any chalky brown dust that might locate him in a place foreign to the Westerner's experience. It was an experience the Kurdis sought for themselves, joining a migration field as much by aspiration as desperation. The family had already escaped bloodshed by making it across the land border to Turkey. The sea journey was in search of a better life, one that would not become, at least for a few months, far more accessible for the hundreds of thousands traveling behind. Demir's image whipped around social media within hours, accumulating potency with every share. News organizations were compelled to publish it or publicly defend their decision not to. And European governments were suddenly compelled to open closed frontiers. Within a week, trainloads of Syrians were arriving in Germany to cheers, as a war lamented but not felt, suddenly brimmed with emotions unlocked by a picture of one small, still form. And again, I want you to look at these images and compare them. The screaming child here. Now, speaking of borders, what do they have in common? This is a child at the US border. She's being separated from her parents. I knew I was going to talk about the Middle East and Central Asia, but the whole point is, no, this is a global story when you talk about children. This is done in the United States border. Parents being separated from their children, and look at that child cry. I mean, even the juxtaposition of these images, I'm trying to say something. So, I want you to look at this German billboard now. In a country where now the far right is in an ascendancy, it's rising, partly in response to the Syrian refugee crisis. At least Spain had this image. At least it had this image. Now, of course, Spain was far removed from this. But I include this image for a reason, because this young girl here, herself, her grandparents would have been refugees. This young girl that I'm showing you here, taking this picture, her grandparents would have been Armenian refugees. And this is a story of not just recent history, but a long history of the region. She's half Spanish, half Armenian. If you want to get a nice idea of how full these boats were, I took this picture in Rome on an event for Syrian refugees, where a helicopter flew above them. And I just found it fascinating because these parents had took this young child who's sleeping to watch the story of Syrian refugees, of babies, some who were lucky enough to make it, some baby refugees unlucky to make it. So speaking of, Syrian refugees, what can we do about it? How do we be, not apathetic in the face of so much suffering? In my particular case, what did I do as a university professor? I would volunteer at a local school for refugees. Somali refugees, Afghan refugees, Syrian refugees. In my lifetime, another generation has come, Ukrainian refugees. This boy, his name was Muhammad, and he's from Syria. So you have to imagine the professor who a couple of hours before was speaking to 120 students. That's how big classes are in San Diego. Arriving here, and the people warned me. They said, the people who work at this school, they said, Muhammad is a bit wild. Can you handle him? And I was like, yeah, I could. This is how we spent our time together. Me on all four legs, helping Muhammad draw this masterpiece that you see here. There's his name, Muhammad. Then we built a house together out of Legos. And the minute we built it, what did he tell me? Now let's destroy it like my house back home. Now let me smash it. What did I tell the people at the school? I said, no, your house is not going to get smashed. So what did we do? I told the people at school, we're supposed to clean up the toys. Can you let Muhammad's house stand? We did. And sure enough, I walked him to the door. It's March 7th, 2017. I walked him to the door to the picture he had to be picked up from his dad. And what did his dad tell me? Muhammad's brother was just born a few hours ago. And the thing is, I'll never forget the first time I learned the news of my sister Layla being born. And this is something I wonder Muhammad will remember. Who was the guy with him the day he heard about his young brother being born? San Diego refugee tutoring. There is a bright line to these stories. I'm going to take you briefly to Afghanistan. Because even with the bright, happy stories. Oh, this is really cute. I hope this gets recorded.
You're gonna be alright. You're gonna be just fine. Feel it out. I think you'll be alright. Soon some better thoughts and words will pop into your mind. Let in the sunlight. Feel it all the time. Things are getting better now, and I'm sure you'll be alright. You're gonna be just fine.
This is the year 2014. I want you to look at the following girl. This is now we're in Afghanistan. The Taliban had been overthrown in 2001. And remember, the Taliban forbade girls' education. I want you to look at the following. A happy story, but then reality sensitive as well.
نامت چیه؟
روشن
روشن
تیم که اول مطب مرم
بسیار خوب چی میکنی حالی؟
ها؟
چی میکنی؟
ولی گندنه بگرم
خب پخته میکنی؟
پخته؟
ها
این پخته نموشه خودنیه
ها دیگه چی خوش داری؟
دیگه مول سرخط
مول سرخط
دیگه چیزی نه ما باغن داریم
خب در کجا؟
در تکر
اوه بسیار خوب است در باغ چی باشه؟
ما سب
دیگه؟
دیگه نوک باشه دیگه چیزی نباشه
میوه و ترکاری برای صحت خوب است؟
خوب است ما این قصه نیالشان داریم بازدوره زردالو هم داره
خب خیلی خوب است خیلی خوب است این بگاه چی که جمع میکنی؟
پیاز
همین چی که گندنک جمع میکنی؟
کار جمع میکنم
نشان بده نشان
این کار جمع میکنم این کار جمع میکنم بازم میگرم
اینجا
از اینجا
آرام بگیرم همین حالی تا خود دشت تکر میری پس؟
نمیرم
کجا؟
دشت تکر نمیرم پس یک بلوکدر میشونم با وقتی خوب که چی شد تربان شد برق صدق میرم و این یاده چیه؟ تایلو و اینجا احمدی آمدم اینجا نلغه میگیرم قدر خوردگی خواهم آمدم
خب والله آیش ما هنوز در عیلاق هست؟
یک آتم دارم آتم عبدالعامد نام داره و این چینی نام داره
خیلی خوب چند برادر داری؟
برادر؟ هیچ ندارم و این مکان مرد
نه
با مو قرآن مرد
نه
مرد کت مرد
چند خواهد داری؟
خور سبزی نست خرشیدی نست زرگونه است دیگه بسیده است وقتی بود دیگه دیم خورمه ناخونشون خوب کایی بود تایدر گشت
خوب درد بخوان خواه در مکتب سنتیاوان خواه؟
سنتیاوانم من
بسیار خوب است خوب درد بخوان خواه؟ آینده چی میخوای کشی؟ آینده چی میخوای کشی؟
ای معلم معلم شو میخوایم معلم ما خوب معلم است
بله آره
و کار نفتاد کار نگیدیم
خدا حافظ
I want you to think of this girl. Here I have a proposition for you. Was the US invasion of Afghanistan just in 2001 if it overthrew the Taliban and gave this girl a future? It's a trick question.
It's a lot of ifs.
It's a trick question. Really trick question. And it's the way I want to kind of come towards my conclusion about reorienting our education. No, the question should be asked, how did the Taliban emerge in the first place? And here's the answer. Oh, do you know? The Taliban emerged because when the US achieved this objective of expelling the Soviets, they did not invest a penny into Afghanistan's reconstruction. And in that chaos, the Taliban emerged. In other words, that's the question you should be asking. Had the US, the world community, the UN invested in Afghanistan's reconstruction? 1 million were killed during the war with the Soviets. 1 million Afghans were killed. Maybe the Taliban would have never emerged. Nonetheless, that girl could dream of being a teacher. And the US justified its invasion of Afghanistan. We're freeing the Afghan woman, thus it's just. And in 2021, this girl who must have been almost of graduating age was denied her future because the US abandoned Kabul to the Taliban. The sad thing is, if this girl is not denied an education, this girl comes from a community descended from the armies of Genghis Khan, known as the Hazaras of Afghanistan. They're not only an ethnic minority, according to the other Afghans, they're also a sectarian minority. They also happen to be Shia. They are hated by the Taliban, and they are particularly hated by the ISIS branch of Afghanistan. So much so that the ISIS branch of Afghanistan went into one of their hospitals, majority Hazara women, into a maternity ward, killed both women and their babies. The thing is, I'm supposed to stop at a particular point in this lecture, okay? But if you want to talk about a group brutal enough to kill babies in cold blood, it is ISIS. We've seen that. Now, like I said, what can we do in the face of all of this? Well, number one, you've already done a lot, okay? By simply showing up tonight, by simply sharing their suffering tonight, sitting and giving up about 90 minutes, technically it was an hour. We spent 30 minutes on the tech, by giving 60 minutes of your time. Some of you can donate your time. Some of you can donate financially. There are various websites to help children in in zones where governance has collapsed. This is an orphanage in Iraq, in Karbala. Not only an orphanage, a hospital and a school, all set up by a single man. A single man set this up. Now, the man, of course, is a cleric. He gets religious donations, okay? But the thing is, the hospital cannot run by itself. It needs a board of doctors, such as this very kind woman here. Who's my mom? That's my mom, who's a diabetes doctor. And what can you do? Yeah, donate. It's so easy to donate to kids' efforts on the web. Now, look at what else can we do. Is again have to reorient our education. If the university doesn't do it for us, we have to educate ourselves. I began with my San Francisco Chronicle article. What do we need to learn about? Okay, so Kylan was my high school friend. He was killed in Hella, not too far from where Zaid and I come from. Imagine this, in my high school class, the first person who went to Iraq was not me, was this guy, Kylan. He was part of the US, he went to the US Naval Academy. He wanted to be a historian. He got accepted into a PhD program in Washington, DC. Why was he on his way to Hilla? To brief Spanish soldiers about Iraqi culture. Basically to tell them not to cause any offense, that perhaps the patches that you're wearing with the word Santiago Matamoros might cause offense to the Moros living in Iraq. That's what he was there for. And in traffic in Halila, he was killed on the way. Now, the thing is, why do I say Kylan is a victim? Because, of course, we all know what led the US into Iraq. And if you're interested in that, Zaid will be talking about what led the US in Iraq on November 30th at 5 p.m., as I will be. We will be discussing the Iraq War and the rationales behind the Iraq War. At 5 p.m., another student of yours named Zahra will also be speaking. So we'll have a female Iraqi, a male Iraqi, and then an Iraqi professor speak about what led us to the Iraq War. Keep that on your books, November 30th at 5 p.m. Kylan's death. Now, this is the thing. It's one episode in this greater history of combatants and civilians. Untold numbers of people who have died or endured PTSD. There are victims of gender-based violence during conflict, those maimed by landmines and amputees, many reliant on prosthetics. Landscapes and waterways are poisoned by Agent Orange, think Vietnam, depleted uranium, think Iraq, or white phosphorus. And I don't have to say more. Animals killed on the front lines or dying underneath rubble. Dogs, horses. Do you know Gaza was supposed to have war elephants? In ancient antiquity, in ancient Greece, yes, even elephants. Eventually, there are always internally displaced people and refugees, desperate for any sense of peace and safety. Think of the story of Al-Marashi. Over the years, I've been working on a course that centered these stories instead of conventional military history so commonly taught. It's a course I call Victims of War. My hope is that one day I'll be able to teach it, and I know Kylan will be right there beside me as the history professor he always wanted to be. Now, just as I conclude with the importance of the freedom of speech, and I want all of you to think about that, and don't make me say a little bit more about this. I just want you to think about premature babies. And I'm not sure if you realize this. You know, premature babies don't even have enough creases on their feet to walk. Never mind this. When they're born prematurely, and the thing is, if they're allowed to be born, they will develop it naturally. But I just wanted to conclude with the kids as I speak. This one image of premature babies. This is the only thing I can make this story relatable to you. I promise to tell you a more cheerful story about a child tomorrow. I know this was hard. Okay? I want you to think of this little girl in Lebanon. Her name is Sandra. I'm a Shia Muslim. She's a Christian. And she's my cousin. And you have to realize I discovered her by accident one day. And how did I discover this branch of my Lebanese side, the Christian side of my Lebanese family? You have to come tomorrow to hear that. And I promise that will be a cheerful story. You'll be crying out of happiness. How did I meet the Lebanese side of my family? It will be tomorrow, 6 p.m. And I would have told you, all of you sooner, were it not just approved by Campus Life just a few hours ago. It's tomorrow from 6 to 7:30. I think I should have it.
Yeah, it's the next slide.
There we go. Thank you for reminding me of my own information. It just got approved, literally. How did he discover the lost Lebanese side of his family? 8:01? 6 to 7:30. Now I'm really begging you to show up so that all the numbers that get registered send a message. This was really hard. This event, tomorrow's event. No, don't be sorry. I want you to be present for this because you've helped a lot with this story. This event and tomorrow's event, and what did I say here? Were really hard to organize. Really hard, so hard that I'm about to give up on giving any more speeches on campus because of just so much. So this is why I really need you to show up, even for 10 minutes, even just to register, I'd be grateful. I see some questions. Yes?
Will this be recorded or is there a way to?
This one has to be experienced in person. Will it be recorded? This is more of a story. It's not a lecture. And the thing about stories, especially for their cathartic purpose, as Aristotle wanted it, have to be. Can you not make it about?
We're not in this campus.
Yeah, well, you're in Segovia.
No, Maria and Molina, but we have class.
Oh, you're grad students.
Yeah.
In that case, how did you get access to this lecture?
Just
Oh,
like
oh.
I connect. When I connect and we're not to connect.
Can you give me your emails? I'll just give you my Zoom room and have it recorded. How about that?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the only way I can think of working way around this. Now, before I let you go,
5 more minutes,
yeah,
please.
just
I
let
promise.
the organizer have the final word.
No, say something.
Oh, me?
Yes, your end. I will say something.
Well, that's it. My final word. Please come tomorrow, so at least I could have to show you how to take misery and find the silver lining in all of this. Okay. That's what I wanted to say. Final word. Thank you. Really, if Lur hadn't persevered, this event wouldn't have happened. I would have given up.
That's what we're all fighting for in this.
And you have to register for tomorrow's event. Register and show up.
Actually, no, seriously, where is the link? Because on the group chat, there's no link.
Literally, I'll be posting it in a few seconds. Yeah, we just, Leia just got the link a few seconds ago.
You wouldn't believe how hard it is to get an event about Middle East approved these days and how the world Middle East scares a lot of white people. I'm not gonna say anything. No.
I'm not gonna put this on YouTube, but. Yeah, go ahead, talk, actually, I'll let it this out for you.
I need the slide, sorry.
Oh, sorry, go back to the slide.
It's okay. Next slide. After a lot of depressing.
Brilliant mind, we didn't plan this, but brilliant minds think alike. What can we do?
After a very depressing
Somber
information in a very, very big zone, and I believe we all feel very small, including me. We wanted with the SDG Club to show you what can be done, because there is small, little, not really impactful in the sense that we're not going to stop the civil war in Syria and we're not going to save the Middle East, but there is little things we can do all here in this room together. This event was supposed to be a fundraiser and it didn't get approved. And we can think of it as all the €5 you guys were given to listen to this. This is it. This is it in terms of learning, because we come here at the Mine Club events, whether it is Ibrahim that talks or the talk Friday with the Minister of Economy of Morocco, to learn, and we learn so much. The internet is the world's fullest library, but you have in this room so many people from the Middle East that you could just ask, hey, can you tell me about your family story? You will learn so much, and you will learn things you won't find in the Mine Club events and not even on internet. The resource of IE is diversity. Today, less than in other moments of our university careers, I will agree, but I swear there is a lot of things to learn. But not only learn, we can also donate. The charity that didn't happen could come today in place with you giving $5, it's pounds, £8 or £12 to War Child. War Child was the decision today because got approved by Campus Life and other associations didn't, but also because it is a global approach. We all have $5 to spare. And you could get a child with a school book in a country like Yemen where schools are closed. Or you can even go up to 8 or 12. You can scan this one and it will take you to the page where White Child explains what they do with their money. Because it's a big association, it can be scary, but more than 90% of their funds actually directly go to children to buy books, food, and whatever it is you can think about. The other thing you could donate is time, and Ibrahim also mentioned this. And as a proud representative of the SDGs initiative, I would like to invite you to give English classes to immigrant children in need. Especially a lot of you in the room, we speak Arabic, and most of these children come from Morocco. And I think there is a deeper connection to be made here, even though a lot of you criticize my Darija a lot of the time. You guys can teach English to these children 1 hour a day, 1 hour a week, like no one could. And this could change their life. And they could be the people standing here in that room, listening to this talk 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And this is everything. Thank you so much for coming. If you have more questions about War Child, if you want to join the Mine Club, if you want to join the SDG Club, if you want to give English classes to immigrants in need that are in Madrid, please, this is my number. Text me. I was so happy to see a full room again today, and thank you for coming, really, from the bottom of our heart. I'll be right. I mean,
Al-Marashi, a backup that send me an email. I'll reply and I have my training. Stop the. Yeah. So we'll talk about Thursday, and it'll be much more at the same time.